Ha!
Ha!
Sorry, Kay.
Not 4K video. It's not 4K. It's for you, says Iyaz, and I agree.
Yes. Them's the jokes, people. It's late Friday on the East Coast.
Hey, thanks for being on a Friday, man. Appreciate it.
Not a problem. Glad to be back.
Thanks for braving the devil of Hell's Kitchen to get home.
Yeah, I bypass him by going through the subway because his layer of hell is actually above the subway.
Yeah, I noticed he never takes the subway. It seems like.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you've taken the subway run where he works, it is kind of like.
I actually have. Yeah.
It's awful there.
No.
Awful.
I met Eric Van Skyhawk for lunch in Hell's Kitchen once.
I don't know who that is.
Hakito? You don't know Hakito? He used to host App Slappy with Scott Johnson.
No.
He's an ad guy.
I believe you.
You guys should get together. You guys should know each other. I'll introduce you.
All right, I look forward to this introduction.
A matchmaker of podcasters.
The pod matcher.
And of course, Len Peralta, thank you for being here despite the political party convention taking over your city for 4 days.
Anywhere that as long as I didn't have to be downtown, I'm okay with being on the show. I didn't have to
you're not down. We really wanted you to be downtown.
Oh, you know what? I was waiting for somebody to say, "Hey, can you, since you're down there already, we don't have to pay you to fly. Can you mind like going over there and doing like something?" Like, no, actually, I don't want to do that. Thank you.
You couldn't pay me enough money. Wait,
believe me. I don't want to be downtown.
I don't care how huge it is.
It's not huge. How about Cleveland, huh? Please, believe me.
All right, I am ready to do this show. Iyaz Akhtar, are you ready to do this show?
Yes, I think I am.
Peralta, are you ready to do this show?
Believe me, I'm ready. I am ready.
Roger Chang, are you ready to do this show? Please don't do a Hillary Clinton impersonation.
I am ready.
That wasn't Roger, but I think
that wasn't too bad.
No, it wasn't. No.
Well, Roger didn't do the impression, so that's good.
That's fine. Everyone's happy. Here we go. Daily Tech News Show is powered by its audience, not outside organizations. To find out more, head to dailytechnewsshow.com/support. This is the Daily Tech News for Friday, July 22nd, 2016. I'm Tom Merritt. Joining me today, Iyaz Akhtar, Senior Associate Editor at CNET.com, and the guy from Queens Network, where you do many shows as well. How's it going, man?
I'm good. Actually, it's guys from Queens Network. I'm a guy from Queens, but I'm in Manhattan now. I'm very happy today.
A guy from Queens. Now I see why it was written that way, because there's no plural. Got it.
Right.
Okay.
Just making sure, because that's my tag right now. Anyway, I can stop saying things like that. We should talk tech.
Let us talk tech. Len Peralta is here to illustrate it as well, and we've given you another financial acquisition.
Hey, you know what?
Not even a finished one.
No, it's you know what? It's going to be very, very interesting. I am ready for anything you throw at me. So let's do it.
I can't wait to do the Salesforce earnings report as your Friday illustration someday. But today is not that day. Today, Pokemon Go finally launched in Japan with McDonald's as a sponsor, hosting gym locations. Apple tells The Verge that Pokemon Go has become the most downloaded mobile app in its first week after release in App Store history. There's all your Pokemon news bundled together in one skippable package. Now for the rest of the top stories. At a Stanford and artificial intelligence meeting, NVIDIA, which obviously provides GPUs that a lot of AIs are going to run on, announced its GTX Titan X video card will arrive August 2nd. In the United States, it will sell for $1,200. It's also coming to Europe. They didn't give us a European price, though. It's Pascal architecture. It can do 11 teraflops of FP32 performance, a 24% jump over the 1080, and 60% over the previous Titan X. It's got a GP102 chip, has 3,584 CUDA cores, runs at 1.531 gigahertz boost, also has 12 gigabytes of GDDR5X memory. There was some thought that maybe they'd go HBM2 this time, but they didn't. Runs at an effective 10 gigahertz and is attached to a wide 382-bit bus, resulting in 480 gigabytes per second of memory bandwidth, and it draws the same max DP of 250 watts that it did before. It can connect by DisplayPort 1.4, HDMI 2.0B, and dual-link DVI. And I'm not tired of talking about new NVIDIA cards, but I might get that way soon because this is the fourth new card released in 2 months.
$1,200. I'm sure it can do everything under the sun ever. I have to like kind of parse out all of the things you said though, because my head's gonna explode.
Yeah, no, I mean, if those things mean something, if you're like way into video cards, right? But if you're the average person on the street, it means, hey, for $1,200, you get a really powerful card, the most powerful card NVIDIA has put out in the past month, and maybe this is part of the strategy, makes the 1080 look cheap suddenly.
Absolutely. And the other thing is, like, it's always helpful when they have cool names. You know, GTX Titan X. All right.
I mean, this is the prosumer card. It's more than a gamer really needs. It's more than even a professional gamer probably really needs. The 1080 is fine for that. But if somebody wants to do more complex things with their machine and they're not really going to spring for server quality GPU or something that's really meant for like supercomputer use, then this is right there in the middle for them.
You can chain them all together.
$1,200.
Chain them all together, make a supercomputer. We got, let's see, a Redbox spokesperson told Variety Thursday that it started testing its own streaming service called Redbox Digital. Redbox published an iPad app for the service, which will sell and rent video on demand. A cast button shown in the App Store listing suggests it will work with Chromecast. Variety says Redbox is also looking at Roku. Redbox launched its Netflix-like streaming service way back in 2013 with Verizon, a different one. That got shut down 18 months later. Redbox's parent company, Outerwall, reports earnings this Thursday. You think this is a competitor, like a real legit thing?
Well, the last time they did it, it was kind of janky, partly because I don't think Verizon and Redbox really knew what they were wanting to do, and it was a apples-for-apples comparison with Netflix, and it didn't have the selection, and it didn't have original content. You know, as Netflix's selection has been reduced over the years, they've put in their own original content to balance that out. I think this is a smarter play for Redbox to say, hey, folks who are used to buying or renting DVDs from our box, you can now do it at home, and it's the same thing. You're buying or renting the DVDs, right? Especially the rental part. So this fits more with what Redbox does, and it's an easier bet because you just like sign some deals and then you share out the profits. You still have to have the back end and the streaming and that kind of DRM management is tricky, and that can cause problems as well. I'm curious to see when and if this launches, whether it will be part of Ultraviolet, because that would make it more interesting to me.
Yeah, they're up against right now, that means iTunes, they're up against Vudu, some major players that have a lot of contracts. I don't know if they have the pull to get those kinds of deals in place, because one of the things that was a fault with Netflix, when they don't do the exact same thing, but if the catalog isn't very good, it's not going to make a difference whether their price is good. Like, you got to have really great titles to get people's attention. And if people are used to the suggestion of the catalog of movies at the red boxes, they want to see the same things, because if it's a lesser quality, who's going to want to use it?
Yeah, and that's a good question. It should be easier for them to strike deals for content since they're doing a store. Mm-hmm. It's hard to get streaming deals. Streaming windows are often exclusive. They're hard to grab, which is one of the reasons that previous service ended up going away, because it just couldn't get the selection. However, movie studios usually want to sell their movies or rent them as many places as possible, so they shouldn't have as big of a deal. We'll see. We'll see once it launches. TechCrunch's Kate Conger has an in-depth look at Reddit and its internal struggles. More than a dozen senior employees have left over the last 6 months. Most recently, Vice President of Marketing Celestine Maddie, Editorial Director Vicky Chang, and HR Generalist Nicole Jasmine Clark left the company. A spokesperson told TechCrunch that part of the reason for the departures is the company's reorganizing its communications, editorial, video, and marketing teams. It's a lot of teams to be reorganizing. Congress cites sources describing a toxic corporate culture, including sexual harassment complaints from and against both genders. It's not just women complaining. There's also men complaining as well. And a lot of those complaints relate to drinking. Alexis Ohanian returned to the company in November 2014. He's been pushing for expansion into podcast, video, journalism, started that digital magazine Upvoted. That has already been slated to be folded back into Reddit. The Upvoted podcast and the formative video series are also no longer regularly publishing, so it makes sense if they're reorganizing that those would sort of go on hiatus, and they might see a shuffle in those areas. Reddit had 244 million unique visitors in April. Not bad. That was its peak, though. It dropped to 221 million in May, and it has not shared numbers since. So we don't know if it went back up, though one would assume if it went back up, they'd probably be sharing those numbers.
Yeah, it's a little depressing to read this story and see that Reddit, at least appears to be internally falling apart, if this report is accurate at all. And just seeing all the changes up at top, the culture of Reddit has changed. You've seen enough backlash to the higher ups, and it should be this way, it should be that way, and it doesn't. I don't know if the community is happy with the way Reddit's being presented these days, or what information is being censored on different subreddits. Because the community is so large, the voice of the people is heard much more, and there's all these people trying to figure out what does the community want. That's a really hard thing to figure out.
Yeah, and Reddit's going through a more slow motion version of what Twitter is going through, as far as you have a lovely period where it grows naturally and everybody gets it who comes and uses it, and then it starts to attract people who aren't used to the culture. And more so than Twitter, Reddit culture is very ingrained. It's very easy for a new person to run afoul of that culture. Now, most moderators in Reddit are very understanding and will patiently explain, well, this is why this happened. But a lot of times, either the person who runs afoul of the regulation doesn't get it and gets angry, or you have some short-tempered mods out there as well. And those kinds of problems have been multiplying, it feels like, over the past several years. And we're starting to get a feeling of, okay, Reddit has finished its ride up, now it's leveled off, and nobody has been able to figure out where to take it next. That sounds familiar. That sounds like Yahoo. That sounds like Twitter to me.
Well, the other thing is that there's nothing right now that can take over Reddit's position. I mean, there was way back when Dig was the huge thing. The Reddit was kind of like counterculture thing that built its way up to the top. Is there anything in the waiting that's sitting around saying, hey, look, come over here? Because I remember when there was that whole shift at the top, there were other sites that were trying to become the next Reddit, but nothing really took off.
Yeah, I mean, in some cases, a lot of people feel Reddit was the next Dig. Dig was popular first, and then it got supplanted by Reddit. And yet, you're right. There doesn't seem to be an obvious place where you can go and do this because everybody moved to apps. And Reddit has had a harder time moving into the app space as well. They've got some decent apps now, but it took them a while to get there.
Yeah, they kind of dragged their feet on that one. Let's talk about the NPD Group. They said that the PlayStation 4 is the top-selling game console in the United States for June. Sony confirmed this information to GameSpot. Now, Microsoft, they didn't release any numbers. Nintendo announced only a 39% increase in 3DS sales over May. Overall console sales dropped 42% year over year in the United States from $313.1 million to $181.5 million. Game software dropped 20% year over year. Overwatch was the best-selling game in the U.S. in June.
Microsoft did announce numbers. They were all about time spent playing. So not really comparable to sales figures. And Sony is eager to crow that it is the #1 selling console in the months that it is. You only know that it's not in the months when it's not because it doesn't say anything. But yeah, it isn't surprising to see the sales slowdowns at this point in the evolution, and it certainly isn't surprising to see Microsoft possibly slowing down simply because they announced 2 new consoles. So that is going to degrade their sales for a couple of months until at least the Xbox One S comes out.
Yeah, Microsoft needs to figure out what to do to somehow take on Sony. But Sony's got their own Neo waiting, their newer PlayStation 4 that's supposed to be super powerful, super awesome, that should compete with, I guess, Project Scorpio, which is next year's version of the Xbox, which I still don't get why you would introduce 2 different versions at the same time, essentially saying, hey, by the way, the new thing that's coming out, don't buy it, because the next one is going to be awesome. So I don't think that's going to help their sales, that greatly.
Although I hear that argument, and it makes perfect sense on paper, but at the same time, what you're saying is I'm deferring sales to later. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's okay. If you're Microsoft and your whole business doesn't count on whether Xbox actually has great sales this month, and in fact, the Xbox Live portion of the business did very well in the Microsoft earnings report. It's bringing in money. So you may say, you know what, it's fine if we don't boost the sales now because we're going to make more money off these new boxes later, and we'll still make the money. As long as we're only stealing sales from ourselves, that's okay. Maybe they feel like it's worth the risk.
Well, that assumes all things stay constant, and if Sony comes up with any killer application like their PSVR, if something that's just far and away better, in that time between the introduction of Scorpio and now, Sony can just take off. They could come up with all kinds of peripherals. Who knows, maybe the Nintendo NX could eat Microsoft's lunch in the interim. So, that's a big, who knows that if that'll happen.
What if there's a HoloLens Xbox One Scorpio bundle?
Okay, if and when that happens, and if it actually works the way it's supposed to, this looks like we're going to see some really interesting fighting here, especially with the way the Xbox is turning into a Windows PC.
Yeah. No, I think Microsoft's holding cards close to its vest, and that's why some of these things don't make sense. I'm not saying the cards will make sense when they play them, but there's definitely cards yet to be played.
Well said.
Fusion reports police in Michigan asked Michigan State Professor Anil Jain to reproduce a murder victim's fingerprint from a pre-recorded scan. In other words, can you 3D print this dead person's finger, Professor, in order to help us unlock a phone? Researchers have achieved success with this method before. This isn't the first time someone's 3D printed a finger to unlock a phone, but it's been in a research situation. This is believed to be the first time it would be used in an active investigation. Verge reports that Rose Eveleth, who wrote the Fusion story, says that they had to 3D print the finger because the victim's body was too decayed to be used. Now, obviously, there's questions here about why it took so long for them to try to unlock the phone. A lot of people speculate that no matter what phone it is, it's likely to still ask for a password since it has been not unlocked for more than 48 hours, and that is more common than not with phones these days. But with all those investigatory procedural questions aside, this is a significant moment to say, hey, 3D print a finger, we need to get it into a phone.
It's a fascinating story because I've reading the headline a couple of times. I'm like, wait, what am I reading? I read the story, and I'm understanding what's happening. It just seems like something that would be out of a sci-fi movie maybe about 15 years ago. Like, oh, yeah, of course, you print out the dead person's finger. Yeah, we can do that now. And it's going to work, too, apart from that part of the passcode issue happening, which is a nice detail that I'm sure somebody in the comments on Reddit would be like, that wouldn't have worked because, and there you go.
Another piece to note here, too, is they had a pre-recorded scan of the finger because the murder victim had been arrested before. And this ties into another story about police stations starting to do not only fingerprint scans, but other kinds of biometric data collection that may or may not be being transparent about with people that have been arrested. And apparently they did a scan of this guy's finger. I would assume you would need more than just the normal fingerprint practice to be able to 3D print a finger that could unlock a phone.
Well, there's also that means phones. You're hoping that they're going to up their biometric game. I think that the Galaxy Note 7 is rumored to have an iris scanner. Maybe you want a lot more living options to have security with your phones. That might become another push in the future as a feature. Like, yeah, you know that 3D printed finger? That's not going to work on the Galaxy Note 82
because it's got a pulse sensor.
And
there's
the
no
implanted chip in your wrist, it knows if you're dead or not. So
right. Dead man's switch. Well, that's why they do the password after 48 hours. It's a really low-tech way of doing that. So, to say, look, if nobody's unlocked this phone in 48 hours, let's assume that fingerprint is not enough to get back into this phone. I mean, even when you reboot a phone, they still say, fingerprint's not enough.
True.
Finally, what do we got here, Iyaz?
I thought it was you. Hang on. I just blew this thing out of the water. Oh, my bad. Sorry. I'm using my iPad today. Android police passed along a Consumer Reports note that Samsung has identified and corrected a manufacturing problem that caused some Galaxy S7 active models to have faulty water resistance. All S7 devices should now be standard version in up to 5 feet of water. Now, some S7 actives failed water resistance tests of Consumer Reports and CNET. Previously manufactured S7 actives will remain on shelves under a 1-year warranty. We tried this out. We saw the report of Consumer Reports, and they did it with a pressurized chamber of water to simulate just under 5 feet for 30 minutes. They found tons of water inside the screen, and things were broken.
Yeah, this
actual like 5 foot of water. But
yeah, so. How do you feel about the fact that Samsung is saying we're going to leave those ones that didn't work on the shelves, and maybe you want to buy an extended warranty? I don't know, but you've got a 1-year warranty, and that ought to be good enough.
They don't want to have to figure out which ones and what was the batch that was bad, because if they fix the manufacturing defect anywhere between the introduction and the story coming public, there's a chance that Samsung might have known this was going on. As long as they're honoring that warranty and saying, yeah, go ahead, give us the phones, that's fine. I think if you have an S7 active right now, dunk it in some water right as long as you can, and then right now while you still can, because you don't want to covered. That's not something that you want to go through.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that is like if you buy an S7 in the next month or two, like how long do you wait though? Because you don't really know when they're all flushed out. so to speak. But I guess it doesn't matter, because if you're getting one that works, then it'll be fine. And even if it's not fine, which it might not be, you'll be able to get it replaced on a warranty. But that would kind of dissuade me from wanting to buy one, knowing that. Unless I'm just like not concerned with water. I'm like, whatever. I had phone that was not water resistant before. I don't care.
Well, the ads for AT&T say it's the toughest S7 there is, and they show with water all the time. So if that's why you're buying it, think twice.
Yeah. Well, you're actually supposed to pour champagne or perhaps a prosecco or a cava over it, from what I can tell from the advertising.
It's true.
Yeah. So yeah, you might want to keep that in mind. But Samsung says they fixed it. Thanks to all those who participate in our subreddit. You can submit stories and vote on them at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. We had a great step in there today from Russell Manthe, Prince Boot, Strike It Rich 1, T2T2, AU Tiger Fan, Abatuela Condulce, and more. You can let them just submit the stories, or you can submit them yourself, and everybody can vote. Doesn't take much time to just look through what's been submitted, make a few votes on the things that you think are very important at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. That is a look at the top stories. All right, so one of the other top stories today is that Verizon is near to a deal to acquire Yahoo. Bloomberg says this, Recode says this, CNBC says this. The price is rumored to be somewhere around $5 billion. That would be more than we had heard. We'd heard Verizon was offering somewhere around $3 billion. It also wouldn't include the patents that Yahoo put up for sale back in June. Originally, it was just the core business, but then they said, okay, we're going to sell our patents at an auction as well, thinking maybe we can get a combined deal for more. They also put the real estate up for sale, and CNBC says that's not part of the deal. The idea, if Verizon gets it, would be they would pair Yahoo and AOL together for all the advertising tech that those two companies have. AOL has made its name on advertising tech paired with their content offerings like TechCrunch and Engadget, and Yahoo has pretty good advertising tech as well. It's one of the things that's kept them going. There's also reports that Yahoo is still talking to Dan Gilbert's Quicken Loans Berkshire Hathaway contingent. That's Warren Buffett's backed attempt to buy Yahoo. It may be that they're still talking about them to keep those negotiations honest with Verizon as they close them up. It may be that Gilbert's going to buy the patents since those might be available separately. We don't know. Iyaz, what do you think of this whole mess as it starts to look like it's finally coming to the end and Marissa Mayer will deliver Yahoo into Verizon's hands?
Well, I mean, the Marissa Mayer experiment has been interesting. I've been looking at this for a long time. I'm like, is this technically a success if she gets the company sold? Because I'm pretty sure I've seen valuations of the company, at least their core assets, at $0 to -$. At times. Because when you look at their investments in Alibaba and you look at their investments in Yahoo Japan, what they're worth is very little. So to sell it off $5 billion would be very interesting just on that standpoint alone, or maybe even $3 billion. But the idea that Verizon would go swallow them up and pair them up with AOL and that kind of media conglomerate, because Yahoo's got their properties of content production. Also, they have their search and advertising business. It just seems like, I don't want to say it's anti-competitive, but it's something about it smacks of danger to me when a company that owns the pipes, also, well, I guess the wireless pipes in this case, as well, has content companies. Sure, they have AOL already, and I thought that kind of smelled funny. But now if they go pick up Yahoo on top of it, they'll have things like Tumblr, Flickr, as well, properties that people don't really think about. And Yahoo's search business is still relatively robust. I think they have something like 200 million users still, which is a lot of freaking people. We got email as well with them. So it's a really interesting data grab for Verizon to have too, but just there's something about this deal that just, or this potential deal, that just smells funny to me.
Well, in that respect, it's nothing different than Verizon buying AOL. You're just saying it's more of the same. Right. And the competitive landscape, most people say that if Verizon does get Yahoo, they will now be one of the big three in ad tech. The other two being Google and Facebook. Both Google and Facebook desperately want to become providers of internet connectivity. Google obviously has Google Fiber in the United States, but it is also active in funding backbone cables, in a trans-Pacific cable to be particular. Facebook is out there building drones that can provide internet over rural areas. Now that's something that's a little farther off, and it's not as endemic as buying backbone trans-Pacific cables, etc. But all of these companies, as companies always do, are starting to consolidate things. And I wonder, as Verizon sells off parts of its Fios unit and really starts to consolidate towards wireless as its main ISP play, they are going to specialize in mobile advertising, I would assume. Does that change your opinion at all when you look at it that way?
It makes me hope that if the deal does go through, it gives a shot in the arm to someone like Google or even Facebook to go, listen, we're going to come out full-fledged ISP and wireless at the same time. Like you mentioned, they have Google Fiber. They've been kind of messing around with Project Loon as well, this idea of getting internet to places that are far off. But if Google went ahead and went this whole hog, they're like, listen, we're a national carrier now. We've decided to take on Verizon head on. I wouldn't mind that. But then again, people will still have the same concerns. If you're using a Google-branded phone or Google-branded wireless service with a discount, they're taking all that data on you. Same thing Verizon's probably going to be doing with your phones. Like, oh, look at all the data we're getting from you. So it's still that kind of, you're still the product. I mean, you're the thing that's being sold to everybody else, to the advertisers. So if anything, if it brings about a Google wireless future, I guess it's for the greater good. But I don't know if I still like the deal.
Yeah, let's take a look at what's on the block if people are still trying to wrap their heads around what they're getting with Yahoo. What you're mostly familiar with is search and media. And those are the two things we've been talking about the most here. Yahoo.com, Yahoo Finance, Yahoo Sports, Yahoo Search. But they also own Flickr, they own Tumblr, they own a few other properties as well. Then the ad tech is probably what Verizon is most concerned with. And one wonders if would they start to close down Yahoo properties? Would they merge Yahoo properties into AOL properties? But the ad tech they have is things like Flurry and Brightroll, and those are the most valuable assets as far as Verizon's concerned. There's the patent portfolio, which it sounds like they may pass on. That has been estimated to be worth $1 to $3 billion. And there's the real estate, which has been worth up to $1 billion. What is not for sale, what will be left of Yahoo, and it'll be interesting to see who gets to keep what parts of the name, but what will be left of the original company Yahoo will be a stake in Yahoo Japan and a stake in the Alibaba Group and possibly the patent portfolio and real estate if they don't sell them. But they're not selling those stakes because if you remember, the idea was to sell off the Alibaba stake and maybe the Yahoo Japan stake, but the tax consequences scared shareholders enough that they decided to reverse it and say, well, let's sell the rest of the company and keep the Alibaba Group and the Yahoo Japan stake because that makes more sense tax-wise. I think you may see the disassembling of a lot of these properties once Verizon gets a hold of them. It will be very curious, and I'm curious to hear what you think, Iyaz. Does Marissa Mayer stay on? Everyone thinks she probably won't. Does Tim Armstrong take over Yahoo? Is it merged under AOL? And once it is merged under AOL, if that happens, what would he get rid of? What parts would he no longer need to keep?
Yeah, I would think AOL and Yahoo's media stuff would get merged right away. I don't think Meyer would want to be a part of this weird thing. It's kind of like when Ted Turner was a part of that whole Time Warner AOL thing. He just didn't really like being there because he's not the head of this thing. Marissa Mayer came to Yahoo to really build it. It wasn't like, hey, I got a great way, I'm going to get a golden parachute. It looked like when she stepped in, she wanted to make this a viable contender against Google, which I thought was a very admirable goal. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. So I don't think she'll stay around just to hang around the office and the water cooler because she's the lady who didn't do it. I just don't think that's going to be her thing. I'm sure she'd do a new venture that'd be amazing. But I could see a lot of the properties just being consolidated under AOL. Things like Yahoo Finance and Yahoo Email, that kind of stuff, you'd leave that alone, although email's obviously very separate. But the bigger names, I don't see why you'd have all this redundancy in certain sections. So you could see a lot of merging happening, I'd imagine, with this kind of deal if it goes through.
Now, yeah, some of you may be tempted to say, well, I just shut it all down. It's worthless. Don't forget, as of February 18th, Yahoo reported 1 billion monthly active visitors. And we talk about, companies getting to 1 billion monthly active visitors as if they're like the biggest dominant thing. Yahoo has that. They've had that for a while. They have 600 million monthly unique visitors on mobile. So as many problems as they have, they are a very successful company as they are right now. They're just not moving in the right direction. And maybe that's what Tim Armstrong could do for them. Maybe that's what Verizon could do for them. But because of that perception that they're in decline rather than growth, let's finish with a little comparison and apologies to you former Yahoo employees, including our own senior advisor Jenny Josephson. Yahoo was worth $255 billion in 2000. Microsoft offered $45 billion for all of Yahoo in 2008. Now that included the Alibaba stake and the Yahoo Japan stake, but still, Verizon bought AOL last year for $4.4 billion, also a company that had been worth a lot more in the past. Yahoo was valued at $34 billion in 2016, so less than the $45 billion that Microsoft had offered 8 years before. But that $34 billion was in almost entirely the stakes in Yahoo Japan and Alibaba. So when Yahoo goes up for sale on February 2nd, they're hoping, CNN reported, they wanted to get $8 billion. The floor was thought to be $6 billion. And then June 10th, Recode reported $3 billion to $5 billion were the bids. They said Verizon was billing something around $3.5 billion. The equity firms were wanting to get the patents, so they were up in the bid to $5 billion. And now it looks we might settle at $5 billion, which on the one hand, iyaz feels like Verizon overbidding just to get it done, but on the other hand is an incredible discount from what this company used to be worth.
It's weird to even think about a $5 billion acquisition as cheap. I mean, Star Wars was bought and Lucasfilm for $4 billion. Marvel Comics was bought by Disney for $4 billion as well. The UFC was sold for $4 billion. This thing, although they were kind of like meandering in some respects, like you've mentioned, the amount of decline that's happened to Yahoo, because they were the king of the heap. You would just go to Yahoo all the time. Even the old original directory days before search engines were really, really good, Yahoo was like, they were ahead of everybody. And they just somehow got bloated and bloated and bloated, and they couldn't figure out exactly what to do. So I think the problem is people are comparing Yahoo to Google, which Google's got like, the success level is just ridiculous. If you compare something like Yahoo to like AOL, maybe that is more in line with them, and maybe together or whatever thing comes out of the two of them together, maybe that will be better than them separated.
Yeah, they're from the same era. It is not lost on me that we now think of AOL. It took a while, but we now think of AOL as that company that owns the Huffington Post and Gadget and TechCrunch and does a lot of ad tech, versus the ISP, which they still have. Apparently people still pay for. But that is the smallest part and, of course, the declining part of their business. Can Yahoo make that same turnaround? And I guess that's where I would want to leave this is if you are a user of Yahoo Mail, and a lot of you are, if you are somebody who still has Yahoo as their homepage or goes to Yahoo News regularly, like my wife does, or reads Yahoo Finance, plays Yahoo Fantasy Sports, you have a vested interest in somebody saving this company because you want to keep using that thing you enjoy. Let's get to our anti-pick of the day. Instead of a pick of the day, iyaz has something that he wants to say, you know what, you really shouldn't pick this.
Well, here's why. Now, a while ago, I did a top 5, and you've heard of top 5. I did a top 5 about like some of the best Chrome extensions you can get, and one of the ones I recommended was a tab manager called Tab Manager for Google Chrome. I really liked it. It was a great way to manage your tabs on multiple windows, and you can rearrange things greatly. The problem is it was recently purchased by another company that is now injecting adware into your web pages, screwing up all kinds of functionality. So if you have it, on my old recommendation, do me a favor and yourself a favor. Uninstall that thing because it screws up lots of different sites, and I would suggest using something like Tabs Manager for now. It's not as good, I don't think, as what the old Tab Manager was, but if you like having that kind of control, it's better because there's no adware. Also means you got to double check the permissions these things are asking for, because I didn't notice the change to it until there was all kinds of like parameter errors appearing on my screen, and I couldn't figure out for the life of me what was going on. So don't pick up Tab Manager. Try Tabman instead.
That is actually just as good as a pick to say like, hey, and trust us, we're not accusing this extension of malicious behavior. We're just saying it now operates differently than you would expect, and so what iyaz once recommended, he can't recommend anymore. And here's some other options. I actually use Tabs Plus as an extension on Chrome to manage tabs. So the point is there's lots of them out there. Send your picks to us, folks. Feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com. You can find more picks at dailytechnewsshow.com/picks. Got a few messages here. A couple of them still about DRM on tractors, but let's start with one that's about smartwatches. We mentioned that market has seen a decline already, but the market's still small enough it's hard to know what to make of that. Matt writes, I've been a Pebble wearer since their first Kickstarter campaign and have become known as an evangelist in the office. Yesterday, a coworker saw my Pebble Time round and asked, oh, did you finally give up on the Pebble? I showed him that it was not just a timepiece, but actually a pebble as I scrolled him through my calendar. If you want a smartwatch that is slim and looks like a watch, Matt says this is it.
I like the Pebble Time round. It looks pretty neat. It has a really large bezel, so it's got a great battery life too. So it's a trade-off right now between what a smartwatch is. If you want an Android thing, do you want an iOS thing, or do you want a Pebble?
Yeah. Good to see a smartwatch fan. And I love that story of like, oh, so you gave up on the Pebble. And he's like, no, the Pebble just got so good you can't even tell it's a Pebble anymore. Dustin wrote in and said, in addition to being in IT for a living, my family owns a farm and many John Deere tractors. So I want to bring up a point I don't think you mentioned on the show. Tractors are getting more and more automated. There is a huge amount of money being invested by all the big ag equipment companies into the software that drives this, and it's being seen internally as more and more of a product in itself. When you ask them to open source the software, you're asking them to lay bare millions of dollars and years of effort to their competitors in an easy-to-read format. And I went back and forth with some emails with Dustin about this. I apologize if I led people to believe that the anti-DRM or the circumvention exception push in Nebraska was asking for source code. They're not. There's no one asking John Deere to do anything. They don't have to open their source code. They don't have to do anything. All they're saying is, we would like to be able to circumvent copyright protection. You don't have to get into the source code to circumvent copyright protection. For instance, if an iTunes movie is DRM'd, you can use the analog loop to just play it and record it, and you've circumvented copyright protection, but that would be illegal under the DMCA. So all they're asking is, hey, don't make it illegal for us to figure out how to work around this if we want to get some codes about what's happening in the software. No one is asking John Deere to open source their code. Now, we could go into a different conversation about whether that might be a good idea for John Deere to do anyway. Lots of companies open source their code and don't worry about losing trade secrets or losing business. In fact, whole businesses are built on that, like Red Hat, and Microsoft is open sourcing code right and left and making lots of money. So maybe John Deere could do that too, but that's a separate issue. Nobody's saying John Deere should open source the code.
You know, I haven't had a lawn in a long time. I didn't realize John Deere equipment got so awesome. But yeah, that's total aside. Sorry.
That's a great point. One of the reasons there's this debate is because John Deere tractors are pretty great. Like, the fact that they can do all of this automation stuff makes people like, hey, but, you know, when something breaks down, it's a pain to have to take it all the way to the dealer to find out just, like, what it's doing. Like, maybe there would be an easier way. Maybe not. We talked about that on previous shows. And finally, Allison Sheridan pointed out, let's say your John Deere is too old, and now John Deere decides to stop supporting its software. The software hasn't been as integral long enough that I don't know that this has come up that often. Maybe you as the farmer could keep it working if it wasn't a punishable offense to modify your own software instead of having a $250,000 lawn ornament. And again, people have pointed out, like, you don't have the interest and or the large number of people invested in making the software to provide, like, the cyanogen mod of tractors. So that may or may not end up being something that happens, but right now it would be illegal for it to happen anyway.
It had to be like a green mod, right? Because it's cyan color, so it'd be greenogen mod.
Yeah. What's a fancy name for green? I can only think of Spanish words like
verde.
Verde mod. Cerulean, no, that's blue too. All right. Well, that is it for this episode of the Daily Tech News Show. Iyaz, Akhtar, where can people find more of what you do online?
Lots of places. Go to cnet.com, or you can go to gfqnetwork.com. You can go to twitter.com/Iyaz, or if you know the shows I'm doing on the side, to patreon.com/Iyaz, because I'm doing some stuff.
Absolutely. Go do that. Len Peralta has been busy illustrating our main topic today. Poor Yahoo. Len, what have you come up with?
Yes. Well, you know, it's very interesting. You know, it's very simple drawing, basically, of the V, which is Verizon, eating the Y, which is Yahoo. And we'll talk more about it. If you're part of the video show, you should listen. I'll talk to you a little bit more about the image itself. But just real quickly, I wanted to do something because I hadn't seen Iyaz in a while. When I would go, when we do Iyaz, do drawings with Iyaz, I would always do these sort of interesting, you know, kind of editorial type stuff. So that's where that came from. So anyway.
Yeah, and that is definitely representing the spirit of Yahoo's investors.
Yes.
In the middle of that Y. You got to take a look at it. LenPeraltaStore.com if you want to take a look.
That's right.
Thanks to everyone who supports the show. We are supported entirely by you. If you're willing to support the show, head to dailytechnewsshow.com/support or patreon.com/DTNS. Some of you support us in both financial and non-financial ways. We have a Vimeo channel now, thanks to listener Philip Shane. You can go find it at vimeo.com/channels/DTNS. For those of you who like to use Vimeo, you can now find DTNS there. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. You can give us a call, 512-59-DAILY. Catch the show live Monday through Friday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern on diamondclub.tv and alphageekradio.com. And visit our website, dailytechnewsshow.com. Veronica Belmont's back from vacation. She'll be with us Monday. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
So we're going to pick a headline, the title for the show real quick, but then I definitely want to talk some more about your drawing, because it's great.
That's amazing.
It's really good. What should we pick, Roger? Do you have any favorites?
Can you hear me? Is my audio working?
I can hear you. I can Yahoo.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
There was a really good, let me see, Yahoo. Can you Yahoo Me Now?
I like that
and
one.
then there was one that was after Yahoo, Verizon's buying Alta Vista. That was pretty funny. How about the other Yahoo one? Did it go away?
What? Can you Yahoo Me Now?
Yeah,
That
I
one's on
think.
top now.
Yeah, that's number one.
Okay, yes. Oh, it moved. Yeah, can you Yahoo Me Now? That one I like.
Can
I
Yahoo
like
Me Now?
that. Let's
Yeah.
go. Let's go with that one now. Perfect. Hey, so Len,
Yes.
tell us who the that angry, the screaming spirit of Yahoo.
Yeah, I sort of got into it here during the show, but when I found out that iyaz was going to be a part of the show, whenever I would do these drawings for the show we shall not
Tech News Today. It's okay, you can say its name.
we used to for Tech News Today. I used to do these drawings that were very editorial in nature, and so I looked at the story and I thought, well, this is a very simple idea. And what I loved about it was that the Verizon sort of has this, it's two letters, it's the V and then the Y, and it just kind of makes this interesting look that actually worked. And my little contribution is to make it. I couldn't help but make it, personify the Y and the V, where the
Are those
V is,
AOL colored teeth?
No, I didn't even think about that. No,
AOL is usually yellow, isn't it?
AOL is green.
Oh my gosh, those could. I know you didn't intend this, but those could be little AOL logos.
After you said that they were going to kind of combine Yahoo and AOL, I'm like, oh, maybe I should work that in there too. But maybe I kind of subliminally did.
Yeah, you sort of did. Anyway.
But this was a lot of fun, and I wanted to do something that was simple, yet very violent.
I love it.
Thanks.
Simple and violent.
Violent. Just because Yahoo has been violenced.
Yes.
Like in the press, in the markets, like it has not had an easy time, and this seems like how they would feel right now.
For sure. Yeah. This was a lot of fun.
I think for the simplicity of the Verizon logo to make it that vicious looking, that is some great work, because it looks. I mean, there's no motion, but it looks like it's devouring this thing.
Yes.
It's such a great piece.
Yeah, thanks. I was when I went to Google the Verizon logo. That's the first thing I thought of. Was like, well, what does this logo look like? I knew I wanted to do something that was going to be attacking the Yahoo, eating it up, so to speak. And so
it almost looks like a shark if you tilt your head. Like your signature's the eye.
Yes.
Yahoo.
A lot of fun. But yeah, so very cool. And it is available in my online store right now if you're interested in getting this as sort of a reminder of this day in history.
It'd be great to have in case the deal doesn't go through. It's like, remember when this almost happened?
Yeah. It's great if you work for Yahoo or Verizon. This would be
I would especially if this goes through. I would like every Yahoo employee to have this in their cube.
On the back of their business cards. That's what I want to see. Yahoo, a subdivision of Verizon.
This is the new logo, everyone.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. It's funny because when you say, oh yeah, you're giving me material that is like really, really hard to work with. But I usually find that those things are like
No,
the
man,
ones that
you always turn it around. You always come up with something great.
Yeah, it's fun. This was a lot of fun. What I also like too is that the Y just sort of made those kind of crazy arms reaching out, which was sort of like a happy accident. So it
Well,
was.
yeah, and the exclamation point even just now has a whole new meaning.
It does. And of course the Yahoo, turning that into a scream. Perfect.
Yeah. No, it's almost representative of the past 8 years for that company.
Well, as long as they keep Yahoo Mail running, I don't care who owns it.
Oh, you still have a Yahoo Mail account?
I use it. I use it for certain transactions online that are spammy.
Yeah, I use it for the same thing. I've moved almost all my really important stuff over to other accounts, but I still have a few things that
I have
Yahoo is now.
I have like my utility bills that go there.
Oh, interesting. I don't have anything like that.
That's serious stuff.
I mean, like my water and gas and
Yeah,
electricity.
you kind of need that.
Yeah, but I also get a notice in my bank too.
Oh, okay, so it's just the backup then.
Yeah. The thing is their Yahoo their email is probably one of the few bright spots that they could do something with.
They've actually done some really interesting things with it the past couple of years too. It's one area that Marissa Meyer's influence I think has been very positive.
It is very Google-like in many ways.
Yeah.
Well, that's right. They made
man.
Gmail.
I just got the notice that my ThinkUp subscription has been canceled.
Oh no.
No, it's because they're closing the company. I love ThinkUp.
Hmm.
We're sorry to see you go. I'm sorry to see me go too.
Hey, this is a plug for a Netflix show. I'm sure everybody's heard about it, but Stranger Things. If anybody's not watching Stranger
they're
Things,
on episode 6.
oh my gosh, I can't wait till season 2. I just hope they don't run into a sophomore slump. But man, boy oh boy, what a great show that is.
Yeah, I can't wait to see how it ends. Actually.
Oh, okay, episode 6. Yes.
I'm 2 episones away from the end.
I haven't seen a single episode.
Oh my gosh! If you are a fan of Stephen King, Spielberg, The Goonies,
and they wear it on their sleeve too, which
I've heard the same thing from lots of people, and I'm just waiting to get to it. Like,
what
did we just finish? Like we're finishing a whole bunch of shows, and like then we still got, I think we have Mr. Robot next, which we have never seen, which is weird. And it's all on Amazon right now, so like the first season anyway. So it'd be nice to catch up to that while season 2 is happening right now. So like, those are the priorities. And Stranger Things will have to wait.
No, I have the same shows where like Stranger Things is one where Eileen wanted to watch it too, and so it kind of jumped to the front of the queue.
Right.
But there are plenty of shows. Hannibal's one that people have been telling me for years. Like, this is a great show. You have to watch it. And I want to. And it's just only so many hours in the day when I'm not podcasting.
Yeah, somebody else told me Narcos is supposed to be good.
I watched a few episodes of Narcos and loved it, but then I just ran out of time for it.
Well, the other thing is Narcos, like, unless you speak Spanish, you know how you do like a second screen? I always have a second screen open, right?
Oh, yeah, no, you can't do that with a second screen.
My
it is its own second screen unless you speak
Spanish. My Spanish isn't that good, so like I have to like look up from time to time, and I'm like, damn it, I have to like completely pay attention to this. I can't watch the show.
That's funny because I completely pay attention to every show I watch.
Really? You don't scroll on your phone or Twitter or anything like that?
No. Eileen does. She just sits there on Facebook. Every once in a while, she has to ask me what happened.
When I watch Tiny House Nation, I don't think I need that much attention.
Okay, when we're watching House Hunters, it's the same thing.
But this is the stuff I watch. Like I watch a lot of brain dead shows because I'm exhausted. At the end, I'm like, you know what? I could probably take care of banking while the show's on at the end. I'm like, look at that.
I went through a Tiny House Nation thing a couple weeks ago, and you know what? It just infuriated me as my new hate watch show.
Why did you hate the show?
Oh, I just the people on it, the ones like
they're so smug.
Yes,
and they're so infuriatingly snobbish.
It's Tiny Luxury is the worst one. Tiny Luxury.
They're also.
I know what you're talking about.
No, I think that my wife hates that show because there's a level of pretension in all those people that would literally fill up 5 of those tiny houses.
Here's why I enjoy the show. You're right about the people on it. But like, I live in a New York City apartment, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to look for some ideas for smaller places. And if I ever wanted to have like a second home somewhere, I'm like, you know, could I live in a 500 square foot place? I'm like, yeah, I did that for about 2 years.
Right.
So why not see what options are out there? But you're right. There is this like South Park style pretentiousness where there's like.
No, you know what bothers me is they actually get to see their tiny house and they go, "Oh my gosh, it's so spacious," and I'm thinking, why do you care? Like, why is that important to you? Obviously
that's against your values.
Why don't you just buy an Airstream or like get a trailer that can expand out, the ones that expand, and just, you know, hey, you could go that route, just go that route.
I think the one that really infuriated me was this couple in Seattle. They had a house.
Seattle.
Yeah, it is Seattle or Portland. There was a couple that lived, this hipster couple that lived in this house, and they wanted to build a tiny house in their backyard, live in the tiny house, and then rent out the large house. But they loved having parties, and they always had their friends crashing and like having wine parties, and they'd like sleep. So it's really important that we're able to have like our friends over on our tiny house. And I'm like, well, why don't you just like build a tiny house, rent that out, and stay in the big house?
Why don't you just stay in the big house and deal with the fact that what you want and what you need to do are two separate.
Well, what you think you want and what you actually do are two different
things. Know what's even better? Why don't you just confine yourselves to one room in your big house, and there's your tiny house?
Well, it's sort of like, do you really want to have your bathroom right next to where you eat? Like, it's just, I don't know. There's something about it.
It's the composting toilet thing that I'm like, nope.
Oh, yes.
Nope. 100% nope.
Those are not cheap.
We had composting toilets in my law school, Vermont Law School, and they had them like on every floor. So basically, there was like a pit at every seat, and it's like, you realize that if you drop your ID, phone, wallet, or whatever, it's gone, like gone. This isn't like, oh, I left it in the toilet, and like, oh, I can dry it out with some rice. No. So
just burn that thing.
Yeah, it's over. But back then there weren't smartphones like there are now, so that's a different hole, I guess.
I mean, I understand the need to downsize, and I do agree that a lot of homes being built today are much too large for even a standard family of 4, maybe even 5 people. But like at the same time, you're going, I think, the exact opposite. That there's a limit, especially if you have kids.
Yes.
Kids having a kid, you realize some space, like their own space.
It's so weird. There was one that like there was like this teenage girl and like their parents. So their bedrooms were on 2 different lofts on 2 different sides, and it's like, you know, you're only separated by about like 5 feet, right? Like, I don't know about you, but where I'm from, sound travels. So you gotta dampen some of this because it's just
existence.
The best part about that one couple from Seattle is that when they they had like kind of like an epilogue to show like how they liked it, and like, oh, this is terrific. Although there's this huge ladder in the middle of our house that we have to kind of step over because they wanted a dining room table, and the only way they could do a dining room table is if they had this pulley system.
Oh, right.
They put it on their ceiling, and then they had to pull it down to eat, and then that made no room, and then they had to add, like, there was no shelving in their kitchen, so like they could not open the refrigerator and the oven at the same time. Like it was ridiculous. And then they were complaining, not really, they were complaining, but they said they weren't complaining, that there was all this great storage underneath their bed in their loft, but in order to get to it, they had to lay it across the bed to open it up to put everything in.
You know what?
Complaining.
They should do a follow-up in 5 to 6 years and see how many of those tiny homes are either back up for sale.
Yes. Well, you can't sell them. That's not an investment. It's not like you're going to sell that thing, right? That's not.
No, you sell it to the next guest on Tiny House Hunters.
There you go.
Or you know what you do? You turn it to an Airbnb. And just say, I made a horrible lifestyle change, and it did work out because you know what, you can't have your cake and eat it too.
No, you know what the epilogue should be, Roger? It should be like when they put those tiny homes on wheels, and the first time they go driving, they should put a camera inside to show all these knickknacks falling off the walls.
Like seriously,
I didn't realize the show struck a chord with so many people.
I just showed. I used to like Property Brothers, but now I just find it's very formulaic.
No, I like that. It is formulaic, but I do like those guys because they actually
No,
are.
well, that's why I could watch something else when I watch House Hunters or Property Brothers, because I know what's going to happen, but they still pull me in, and I still find myself like, oh, but I want to know what it looks like when they're finished.
And you know what? They all look like the same IKEA renovated home with.
It's all about the open space. It's all about the open plan.
Yeah, and you know what? Sometimes you don't want an
wall.
open space. If you're a bad cook, I can guarantee you want some doors to close and a separate window to blow out that burnt fish or something.
How many people really make use of those open kitchens? Like, they all say they're going to. I'm sure some of them do, but most people don't cook these days.
I'm going to entertain myself. It's like, no. It's just...
Well, it was so funny because actually I got called out by somebody who on Twitter because I was tweeting about how much I hated these tiny house shows, and someone in SoCal was like, well, this is a really, really viable idea. And I said, yeah, but I don't, it's just not for me, because they're like, well, of course, because you have all these kids. I'm like, yeah, but it doesn't make any sense. You can't get away from anybody. And his thing was, well, here in California, the outdoors, you can just leave. You can go outdoors. I'm like, so I gotta leave my house every time I want to get away from somebody? Like,
no, we lived in an Eichler house in San Rafael, and the whole point was like, you've got outdoor living. And yeah, even though the weather's great, sometimes you just don't want to be outside. You don't want to have to. There's bugs out there and
There's
noise.
Bugs, it's windy some days. You get stuff dropping on you.
Yeah.
It's loud. The neighbors doing yard
I'm not
work.
complaining, but. No, I mean, I'm seriously, like, I still enjoyed being out there sometimes, but you can't really make that a room in your house because it's not always prime, right? You don't go out there. I didn't go out there much when it was dark because having lights on attracted bugs, and so, like you say, sometimes it's raining, sometimes it's windy. Like, yeah, it doesn't rain anymore in California, so I guess that solves that.
It doesn't rain anywhere. It's so dry everywhere.
No, but I loved the Tiny House Hunters thing. The first time I saw it, I think it was on like FYI Network or something, because I love that idea of efficiency for the same reason Iyaz was saying. Like, being able to make the most of your space is awesome, and I think that's the motivating. That's the fun part of it. That's the good part of it. Is like, hey, we live very wastefully sometimes. We don't make good use of our space, but yeah, that it often becomes their own personal value system. That's a little bit ridiculous.
It is, and I also love when they come into they focus on somebody who is a collector, and it's like, well, we have to pare down your collection. I was like, what?
No. I'm gonna have to buy myself a second tiny house. It's gonna look a lot like a tough shed.
I'm gonna have a tiny shed behind my tiny home.
That's another show.
Tiny shed.
Tiny shed.
No, there's a show called
Tiny Hoarders.
She Shed is the show.
He said, she said.
Yeah, he said. Wait, he shed, she shed is actually the show title.
Actually, the show's called Even Tinier House.
No, so you're saying there's a real show, Iyaz?
Yeah, that's a real show on FYI right now. He shed, she shed, and it's hard for me to say.
How they both need a shed, but they have different needs for their shed.
It's essentially like, a man cave, or like, I guess, I don't know what they call a man cave for a woman, a room. Whatever you want to call it.
You gotta be,
I'm not trying to insult anybody. What do you call it?
No, I don't. Yeah, no, the man cave is kind of a dumb name.
But that's a term, right? I've heard that. It's essentially the same thing. It's supposed to be like a shed for each person. I haven't watched a single episode yet, so because I'm right now, if my even guiltier than Tiny House Nation is bargain beachfront property. I like that show.
Okay, that sounds interesting to me though.
Yeah, because it's like, wait, you can spend like only like $135,000 to be on the beach, and like, okay, all right, I should learn to swim, but okay.
There is, by the way, on Netflix, there is a tiny house show where they have this woman who is in Southern California, who is a sound therapist.
I think I know those people.
Yeah, she's a sound therapist, and she's like total flaky. And she wanted this tiny house because she loved everything small. And I think she ended up buying a yurt or something. And
wow, one of the
And then she said, "Oh, this is great. I love that they have this little kitchen, but I want to use it for something else because I'll put my kitchen outdoors." Same thing with her bathroom. I want my bathroom outdoors because I want to use the room inside my yurt for something else. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's what you want. You want to go to the bathroom outside, and you want to, when the coyotes and stuff come
on the same
to your
point,
kitchen.
I don't want the bathroom in my yurt.
Well, I don't. That's the same thing. It's like This is my vision of tiny homes. Is they do the tiny home thing, and then the epilogue is this hipster guy with this old tiny curly mustache and a top hat, drinking a martini in a very very small bathtub with his wife's butt next to him, going to the bathroom because this is your bathroom. It's real small, but you're a hipster.
Stay tuned for next week's illustration, folks.
I should just draw that for sure.
Yeah, you should. You should just make that into something. That's amazing.
Yes, for tubs and giggles.
All right, I'm gonna wrap us up here. Thanks everybody for watching. Like I said, Veronica back on Monday. We will see you then. Thanks again, you guys.
All right, cool.